Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, Supermans, and Loises. That's right. This week, we're going to be talking about the fourth and final season of Superman and Lois. I'm your host, DJ Wooldridge. With me, as always, is Roxy Stryer. Good morning, Roxy.
Hi, DJ.
Let's get into it. So fourth final season of Superman and Lois, adapting the iconic death of Superman's storyline. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but Roxy, have you been keeping up with the show? Because I watched the first season, and then this is the first time I've watched since.
I believe I watched, as I was thinking about it when I went back, I know I watched the full first season. I might have watched half of the second season.
Mm-hmm.
And no, wasn't keeping up with it at all. And I honestly hate doing this, DJ, because as you know, TV is my jam. And I have I respect television more than I respect any other medium. So I really don't like jumping in and out of a show and then talking about it because I feel like it doesn't give it a fair shake. It's not the same thing as a movie.
Yeah.
When it comes to television. If you watch something like when we watched Rings of Power, I can't say whether it's a good or bad show.
Yeah.
I watched the pilot and then I watched the first episode of the second season. It's not fair for me to speak on it other than it's not for me.
Yeah.
So far, not for me.
Yeah.
So I was a little nervous jumping back into this, but I did feel like I had a little more faith because we have all of our background with obviously knowing these characters, but also the DCCW shows and having seen all of season 1, part of season 2, even though I missed a lot of season 2 and all of season 3, I felt like maybe I'd be able to piece things together.
Yeah, it was weird because, I've kind of kept my ear to the ground on what's happening.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
via what? Twitter or how?
Just, just every once in a while, like, I'll be on a website and be like, here's what's going on at Superman and Lois. I'm like, all right. And I do want to not necessarily re-watch the show, but revisit, like, what did you guys cover in season 2 and 3? Because I thought...
Do you have the answer to that? Like,
no, because I thought Bizarro was the villain in season 2, but Bizarro is how we got Doomsday. So it's like, what were we doing? So I need to brush up on that. Probably should have done that before the show. In my defense, I have a newborn. All right, so I was up till 1 a.m. putting the show together. So we're lucky. You're lucky we're here today. But... okay, we were jumping ahead a little bit. Let us get into, before we get into Superman and Lois, a little business up top. As always, if you want to watch the show live, if you want early access ad-free, if you want Patreon-exclusive shows like Mutant Academy, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. Every week we're reading comments from YouTube and Spotify. You Spotify listeners got to get in on the comments.
What are you doing, Spotify people? Get there.
Get into it. KC Soup 3 says, I seriously cannot wait for Billy and the Young Avengers. I know his backstory is wild, but he's just such a great character, and a Young Avengers show would be a great way to pull all these young heroes who might not be able to sustain a movie together and do something fun. Also, oh my God, Roxy, please watch Heartstopper. It's so, so good.
I hear it's amazing. I really should. About the Young Avengers portion of that.
Yeah.
I was loving our Young Avengers conversation last week.
Yes.
So when I was on Christian Harloff's show, I was talking about Young Avengers, and I was like, it's so crazy, nothing's been announced. And the comments were like, yeah, nothing's been announced because nobody on the planet would want that. Nobody wants anything to do with Young Avengers. And I was like, what?
Yeah, we had a few comments of like nobody. I think it's on the TikTok because I'll take a clip and put it on like TikTok or whatever. I think that's
on social.
Yeah, I think our YouTube comments were like, yeah, where are they? Or some of the TikTok ones were like, nobody cares about Young Avengers, and I'm like, it was one of the most popular series in the early 2000s. What are you talking about? Like,
but also even if it wasn't like. Those are the characters people care about right now. What do you mean nobody cares? Those are half of our characters. So like, what? I've never felt so separate from audiences about like nobody would want to see that, and I'm like, am I nobody?
Yeah. I think that's when we've been running into this a lot more recently. It feels like I think there is a contingent of online fandom that thinks like, well, I don't care about it. Therefore, nobody on the planet must care about it either. And it's like, well, that's not how things work. That's not how.
Yeah, it's like when people comment, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And it's like, You know that.
My favorite, I didn't pull it, and I might respond to it. One of my favorite comments this week was like, it's so not complicated, all right? Wanda's kids were just reborn into other teenagers' bodies. So simple. I'm like, yeah, that's... What do you
that
mean?
Happens all the time, DJ.
Yeah, you create imaginary kids with your magical powers, and then Mephisto is like, actually, those are a shard of me, and then he reintegrates them. But then actually, these other teenagers that are older than your kids were died, and their spirits, their made-up magical spirits, went into them. But then actually, the Mephisto thing was a lie, and it's like, come on. Come on.
Wait, I do have a follow-up question for you on that based on this week's episode.
Yes.
Can I ask it now?
Yeah, do it.
So, DJ,
yes.
You, my expert of all experts, you're my go-to. You had told me that they come at a certain age, but not at birth.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting somebody to have to die in order for him to get in the body. Is that the way that it works?
I am trying to recall from the comics. It was one of those things that I kind of just let watch. I was like, sure, whatever, that's fine. Billy and Teddy are the Wanda's kids, whatever. I don't remember from the comics. But now that you've said it out, I watched the episode. I'm like, okay, got it. This is how we're doing in the show. Got it. We'll talk about Agatha a little bit later. We'll get into it. But thinking back on it, it's like, wait a second. So does he have the mind of a child, of a 10-year-old and a 16? It was, I think, when it's bar mitzvah for the boy.
Yeah.
And that age is
13.
And then we cut 3 years later. So he's supposed to be 16. Wild. Mm-hmm. Don't believe that actor. 16. That's fine. But so he's supposed to be 16. But how old was Billy in the imaginary? Don't come at me like it's not weird. It's weird and complicated. Anyway.
How old was he?
I mean, that actor was like 10 from WandaVision. So he's like 10.
Yeah, but how many years ago was that?
Well, it happened instantaneously.
Oh, yeah.
It happened. I mean, it was a couple years ago now, but as far as the show, it happened instantaneously. So am I supposed to infer from that he's got a 10-year-old brain and a 16-year-old or a 13-year-old, if 10-year-old and a 13-year-old?
He also has one throwaway line where he's like, yeah, so I didn't want my parents to worry anymore, so I pretended to remember everything. And it's like, how'd you do that?
Yeah, and it's also unclear. So like that whole opening sequence with the bar mitzvah, he doesn't have anymore, or that's integrated into his new personality? Are the two parts making a new person? Did the original person go away and now it's Billy? Like,
not complicated, DJ.
It's so simple. Anyway,
and I actually am liking it, but that doesn't make it not complicated.
I do think it's one of the best episodes of the season, and I do think they should have done this format. Like, let's go back and find out who this person's story was.
That's what you asked for last week. You were like, "Why aren't we going back at all?"
Yeah, and
then this week was like, "Here you go, DJ."
Yes. And it also brings back one of the worst jokes in MCU history, in my opinion. But another comment, we're going to talk about that more later. Cryo 180, you guys theorizing about who Aubrey Plaza's character might be, and I still can't stop thinking about the list of witches that Patti LuPone's character created, where the last member was a heart, a black heart, as in Blackheart, a demon child of Mephisto, but maybe I'm just reaching. So what he's talking about, we were trying to figure out, is Aubrey Plaza, Aubrey Plaza's Aubrey Plaza. So is she just going to be a throwaway character? And on Patti LuPone's list, there was a black heart kind of referencing Aubrey Plaza because her and Agatha have a contentious relationship. There's a character, typically a male character, he's like a big demon porcupine guy, called Blackheart, who's Mephisto's son. So I get what they're saying. It's actually a pretty good pull. However, many comments informed me that apparently the actual identity of the character was spoiled by Funko Pops. And I did look that up. And I will say it's an interesting poll. I wouldn't have anticipated
Tell me.
it. Do you want to know? Do you want to be spoiled by Funko Pops?
I guess so, but everybody at home who doesn't want to know.
Shh, cover your ears. Okay, so when I looked into it, and again, so this is an article saying like these Funko Pops are listed. I did not see them. This is what I found online. So, grain of salt or whatever. But apparently Aubrey Plaza is playing Death. And if people familiar with the comics or not familiar with the comics may not know that typically in Thanos' backstory, the reason he wipes out half of humanity and does most of the things he does is he is in love with Death, who is a physical entity, like a cosmic thing that exists. That's normally just like a skull in a robe. Does it talk? Sometimes, I guess, depending on the writer, Death like talks. Sometimes it's just like a figure that Thanos talks to. And it's like, Aubrey Plaza's Death? That's, I guess, could be cool. That's weird. That's a weird one.
But it does definitely give her opportunity to live.
Yeah, and do more and like be important. It is weird that we're doing Death after Thanos is gone. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know.
Imagine they retcon and they just start giving us flashbacks of Aubrey Plaza and Thanos.
And
she's like whispering in his ear, like, you gotta do the snap, bro. And he's like,
oh, okay. Dude, my favorite, this made me think of, there was a Guardians of the Galaxy video game released a few years ago, and it was actually really good. It didn't do great, so they're not making more of them, but it was really good. And it had one of my favorite interpretations of this whole thing where, you know, in between missions, you play Star-Lord and you're able to go around your ship and talk to other members of the crew. And when you're talking to Gamora, you're able to be like, hey, so why did you stop fighting for Thanos? And she's like, oh, well, because, you know, I was all for it. And then one day I walked in on him and he was talking to himself and he said everything he was doing was for Death. And I was like, oh, you're crazy. And so I decided to leave. I'm like, that's the MCU should have taken that. That's perfect. That like, no, when we call him the Mad Titan, legit, he is insane. Like he's got a problem.
That would have been better for people around the world too, to not be like taking from the movie. Yes, we should kill half the people.
Yes. That I think that would have helped that. And yeah, it just was one. It's a good workaround from, you know, because the MCU gets less grounded with every installment, but originally tried to be more grounded. So instead of trying to do the embodiment of Death, just be like, whether Death exists or not, the fact that Thanos thinks he's talking to Death is a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem.
So
I'm curious what they're going to do with this now. And also, I think it's so annoying when Funko Pops or Legos or whatever, like that. It's so strange that that's how we find things out.
Agree. Counterpoint. I am a little tired of the mystery box aspect of like, can't the character just be the character? Yeah, but you know what I mean? Just when you announce Aubrey Plaza, by the way, Aubrey Plaza, we're not going to call her a different name. She is this.
I hear you, DJ.
Character.
But not in Funko.
No, I know. But yeah, but I'm just saying that just the idea of leaving it a mystery at all, for example, there's been a lot of speculation about like, could Theo Rossi's character on the Penguin be secretly the Scarecrow? And it's like, I don't want him to be secretly be anybody. Just have him be the Scarecrow. It doesn't need to be a reveal. He could just be that character. Like with Benedict Cumberbatch in Star Trek, where he's Khan. He's like, just have him be Khan. I don't need you to pretend he's somebody else and then reveal he's not. I don't know that that's narratively beneficial.
I hear you.
But yes, agree. If it is meant to be a mystery,
I just think it's two different things we're talking about.
I get it. No, I get it. If you want to be a mystery, don't be revealed by the merch. I'm just saying, not every character. I don't think it was beneficial to have the teen be the teen. It's like he could have just been Billy Cap. Everybody guessed immediately he was Billy Kaplan, and he was. And so, like, why did we do this anyway?
No, I liked that one, but okay, I hear you.
It was a good episode. Also, if you want more conversations like this, you can check out my personal channel, DJ Talks Trash. We're talking about Superman today. Apropos, Sal and I just launched our new show, Krypton Academy, where we're going through, once a month, we're going through every Superman movie leading up to James Gunn's new Superman movie in 2025. This month, of course, we started with the original Superman, the movie in 1978. It was a great conversation. There will probably be a link somewhere that you can check it out. And
have you talked about how weird the internet is being about the crypto image?
No, we did talk about it because literally right before we recorded, it dropped. Like James Gunn dropped that image like an hour before we recorded, so we did bring it up. Are people is it the Snyder fans? They're being pissy about it? Like, how dare Superman have a dog?
Like, kind of.
Yeah, man.
I'm not exactly sure who they are, but people, it is so weird. People be mad about that image. Yeah. I was like, Just the back of a dog.
Yeah, yes. People were like, "Oh, how dare DC characters have fun?"
No.
Anyway, whatever, man. Like what you like. I don't know. So, speaking of fun, let's talk about the death of Superman in Superman and Lois. This, the fourth and final season just started dropping. There's 3 episodes. Roxy watched 2 of them. I watched all 3. And one of the reasons you're like, wait a minute, it's been a while since you've talked about Superman and Lois. As we talked about at the beginning of the episode, Roxy and I, on various outlets, have covered the CW superhero shows forever. And so this is technically, it's not in the same, for whatever reason, is not in the same universe as the rest of the ArrowVerse shows. It's part of that multiverse. But it is the last of the superhero CW shows and kind of the end of the line for superhero TV as we knew it. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. But before we get into that, Roxy, you watched the first 2 episodes. What did you think of them?
I was so pleasantly surprised. It did take me a full 2 episodes, though. I guess maybe after the first. So what you had asked of me, DJ, is that I watch the first.
Yes.
I know that I like it because I watched 2 and I had 0 time this week.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want to watch more.
Yeah.
For the first 20 minutes, I wouldn't say confused because I know the storyline, but I was like in my head a lot. How did we get here?
Yeah.
What happened before this? Why are we like this? Oh, yeah, I forgot about the brothers. Are they still like where I left them?
Yeah, weirdly, kind of. Weirdly, they are kind of where we left them.
Yeah. I was shocked to see like they didn't do some kind of like bait and switch. Actually, they both have extreme powers now where they both can whatever. Like,
wait till the next episode.
Oh. Kind of saw that coming because he's like talking to that girl and he's like, I don't think my brother's ready. And I was thinking like, oh, is this how you, but anyway, okay. So, I just was like, okay. I actually am asking myself a lot of questions. And instead, Roxy just watched the show and see how it goes. I think that it's going really well. I love this Lois.
Yeah.
But she does have some qualities and characteristics that are the things that I don't like about the character Lois sometimes.
Which are?
Like in this, spoilers for people, but Superman be dead, and she's like, guys, it's over. And I'm like, it just doesn't feel like Lois at all. I don't know. It just is like she's, for somebody who is a journalist who gets down to the bottom of everything, I've always found the character of Lois to be very contradictory. Like she's very like independent woman, but like constantly in need of saving.
Yeah.
And she's very like rational, and we need to see all possible options. But then she's like, I'm going back to work. Kids, and like, watching her be a mom. And this happens with Lois all the time, but she's parenting these kids and she's like, I'm going to go back to work. And they're like, Mom, can you not go back to work? And then she's annoyed with them for like running off and doing things. And it's like, maybe watch your children whose father just died or what, there's so many issues I have with the character sometimes, which is in every iteration of Lois we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I really like this actress. Do you know what her name is?
It is Elizabeth Tulloch.
Elizabeth Tulloch, I think, does an awesome job, and she makes me like feel for Lois and understand where she's coming from. So of the Loises I've seen, she is way up there. Like I think she's doing a great job. And I really like the boys, and I like that they're doing this storyline for the final season. This Lex Luthor isn't working for me.
Interesting. It was funny because I was watching, I'm watching it in between like bottle feeds and stuff like that. And so my wife was with me for part of it. She's like, why does Lex Luthor look like a biker? And I'm like, that's just what we're doing here.
He like should be on Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
And maybe it would be working for me if I had watched season 3.
Yeah.
Season 3, very clearly, Rise of Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
So it's not fair for me to say that. But when I'm watching it, I'm like, I feel like a incel, not my Lex, not my Lex Luthor. That's what I literally said out loud when I was watching the second episode, I was like, that's not my Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
And it was like,
yeah.
Who am I? I didn't even watch season 3. So, but just something about him just doesn't seem to fit in with the tone of the CW DC verse that we had made.
Yeah.
And so I was still stuck on that. And then watching this Sons of Anarchy type guy come in, I was like, but what? No. So yeah, man. Like, just visually speaking, I don't know. He's got the bald thing going on. I don't know why, to me, he just so is not Lex. He's just so not Lex.
It's funny because the thing I noted is like, we've really, especially the TV versions are like, Lex bald, yes, but also beard. Supergirl, John Cryer, Lex has a beard. Lex Luthor shows up for one episode of Titans, played by Titus Welliver, beard.
I think John Cryer looked more like Lex to me.
This is a different. This works for me for a couple reasons. One, I do like, because this Lex has just gotten out of prison for 17 years. I think the narrative we've set up is just prior to the show starting, Lex was sent to prison by Lois. I like that his main beef is with Lois. Superman's kind of ancillary. Like, I'm going to kill Superman. I don't like Superman. I'm down to kill him anyway. But it's mostly to get to Lois. I think that's an interesting, for this show that is Superman and Lois, positioning him in that way, I think is smart. And I like that because he's kind of lost everything. His main problem seems to be that he's now estranged from his daughter from being in prison. It is at least hinted at that maybe Lois got him into prison on either a technicality or maybe for something. It's one of those situations. He is a bad guy. He did bad things. What he went to prison for was not a thing he actually didn't do. There's implications that may be the case. But I like how laser focused he is. He's like, I don't have anything else on my plate now other than ruining your lives. So there's an intensity there that I think is interesting, even though, and I think the actor's good, even though
he is good.
Yeah.
He is good, which is why I feel bad about like that it just isn't a match right now. And I do like the aspects that you are talking about. And I do also like that his beef is with Lois, and therefore it is with her children as well.
Yeah.
Like it all kind of, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And maybe the more I watch it, the more it will grow on me. It's just kind of jarring.
Yeah, it was, especially, and I think, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but if I were to try and like guess or articulate, I think a good example would be, there's a scene, I think it's in the second episode, where one of his Luthor Corp guys comes in and be like, hey, CEOs are celebrities now, so we need you on the stage. And I'm like, this guy?
Yeah.
This guy looks like he would make we're used to like the dweeby robots out of it CEO types. This guy looks like he'd put somebody in a headlock. Like, I don't know that anybody, I don't know that
it's kind of like you can't really have both ways. Like he's the ex-convict whose beard is his chest.
Yeah, exactly. And this is supervillain Lex Luthor. This is a guy that the board would be like physically intimidated by.
But the most important thing about Lex always is that he is the smartest, or one of the smartest people in every room. And I do think they're doing a good job showing that. And I liked the part where it was like that creepy ass phone call. Which one of your sons do you want to save? Because you can't save both. And then he really is toying with her.
Yeah.
So there are parts of him that I do like. He just feels like he's on a different show to me than the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Right now, but I'm sure there's room for that to change. I like the grandfather.
Sam Lane. Yeah. He's he of the ones, because again, we watched originally and then we're checking back in. It seems like he's grown the most as a character.
Yeah, I like the grandfather.
Mike Joyce coming in, watching live, helping us fill in some of the gaps. Mike Joyce says the main villain from last season faked Luthor's voice on a recording that implicated him in a murder. So we actually did go. I actually kind of like that. Luthor did a bunch of crimes, but the one he went to jail for was not one he did. It's like, that's compelling. That's interesting.
And did Lois know that it was a fake and went forward with it anyway, or did
we just find out later? I'm gonna bet we just found out later. But yeah, the big offer this season is we open with Superman fighting Doomsday, and in obviously it's the CW show, so they don't get in. You don't see too much of it, but Doomsday rips out his heart, which is how we.
Did it throw you off with how fast we stuck? Like this felt like a finale episode.
Oh yeah, and
I was like, oh my god, am I on the right episode?
I really like the idea of Superman fighting Doomsday in space. Obviously, the budget struggles to. It does good for a CW show, but it's still a CW show. It's a CW show on its last season, as the CW is changing hands and things are changing. But
for sure,
conceptually, it's very strong. I will say, Roxy, I'm not going to spoil the next episode, because that leads me to another question. Are you going to keep watching?
I really think I am.
Okay, so I'm not going to spoil it. I will say, for the sake of this,
keep watching?
If time allows, I would like to. This because the last time we did the CW shows are leaving was the final season of Flash, and that was a chore. This doesn't feel like a chore.
How many episodes is this season?
I will look it up, but I will.
Because if it's 24, that'd be a chore.
No, it's not going to be 24. I'll bet you I think it might be, because they cut the budget a lot, to the point where a lot of the supporting cast is either not showing up or is only showing up for like 1 or 2 episodes. That's another one of my other nitpicks with the season, is you can kind of feel
not Superman.
Is the scene, specifically the scene in the first episode where like Doomsday drops his body off, and it's supposed to be this big moment, and like 4 people come out, like four people, and it's like, all right, so it's a small budget. 10 episodes.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And then Lana has to be like, everybody look away.
Yes. All 3 of you look away.
That's Lois's very good friend. Everybody look away.
Mike Joyce said, Lois's very special friend. Don't ask questions. Mike Joyce says, I think they found out last season about the recording, and that the first half of the Doomsday fight in space was from last season's finale. All right, so they were saving some money. That's fine. I'm fine with them saving that money. You do you. But yeah, just for the sake of conversation, the big offer of the season, they do walk back a little bit in episode 1, Superman's dead. Episode 2, Lex stomped on his heart, which I have wait, you can just stomp on it's still Superman's heart. You don't shoot it with kryptonite or something. You step on it. All right, whatever. And so he's like, he's dead. And then episode 3 is like, but maybe. And it's like, listen, we all know Superman's coming back, but you've got Steel running around. You've got 2 Superboys. You could do like a Reign of the Supermen story. I kind of wish we don't live in this world. Roxy, did you ever watch Twin Peaks: The Return, the Twin Peaks revival?
No.
Okay. So we all know, for fans of the show, knew going into Twin Peaks: The Return that Dale Cooper's coming back. At the end of season 2, he was possessed by an evil spirit. That's the shorthand version of it. And we knew he was coming back. And David Lynch, being David Lynch, was like, I'm going to draw that out till literally the very end of the season, when you finally, all you want is Dale Cooper back, and I'm going to make you wait for it. And it's like, I kind of wish it's like, yeah, we've got the flashbacks with Tyler Hoechlin.
Yeah, but the final season, my dude, we want Superman.
I get it. I'm just saying, like, maybe make us wait for it a little bit.
Well, I've been 2 episodes deep in there, and not the 3rd, so maybe I'll feel that same way. But so far, I'm like, oh wow, they're really letting this play out.
Yeah. And I do like
dude, we did Flashpoint in 1 episode. I know. What are you thinking?
I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe learn some lessons from that. Let's draw it out a little bit. I don't know.
With Leonard, counterpoint, nah.
No, I do like that by the nature of the show, and I think they could have leaned into this more. They're leaning into the emotional reality of Superman dying, like with his loved ones, as opposed to, it felt like in the comics, where it's all about like, hey, here's these new Supermen, and here's all these plot stuff. Similar with, we saw the death of Superman, and we love this plot line in the DCEU. But this one, because it's focused on his family,
and I love what that does to the kids too. Like, will I ever be my dad? Will I ever be good enough? Like, it's very relatable.
Yeah.
and I really like that. This is my qualms with Lois. It felt like she cared and then didn't care much. Like,
yeah.
And I know that that's how some people grieve. But like, girly be going, she was like, yeah, I have to go to work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like,
I also wish the show it's a little unclear. I feel like I lean into like, no, he's dead. As opposed to like, well, maybe if we do this, like, no, everybody should believe. And I think that leans into like, just draw that out for like half the season. So that the audience goes though, like, DJ? Is he coming back? What maybe about
it's for the younger people? Like, you're like, everyone knows, like, if you were 12,
yeah,
maybe you think he's dead.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Lean into it. Make us wait. I think
they are.
Lean more. Go more. Go harder. Lean more.
You want them to lean with it, rock with it.
Lean with it, rock with it. But yeah, I think if time allows, I might stick with the season. We might circle back at the end of the season. But we do have some questions from the Discord History Nerd. With your start of Krypton Academy, what parts of Superman and Lois or the greater Arrowverse should Gunn and the rest look to when making the new movies? In Krypton Academy, we touch on that at the end of the episodes. Every time we talk about a movie, we're going to be talking about like, what should the new DCU pull from this? We did that with X-Men. We're going to do that with Superman. So I'm going to throw this to you, Roxy, first. Is there anything from the Arrowverse or specifically Superman and Lois that you think Gunn should be dialed into as he builds his new DCU?
It's a good question. I would have to really think about this.
While you're thinking about it, this is going to go off the Superman of it all. But I have been thinking about it, and I haven't had a chance to talk about it. You know, we know the first official DCU project is Superman. And the Green Lantern is getting a TV show with lanterns. It's Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan, whatever. I might have mentioned this another week. Sorry, my brain's mush. Obviously the Flash movie bombed for reasons that may or may not have been out. You know, who knows how much the outside factors factored into it bombing. But now, since we're getting a Green Lantern show, I do think James Gunn should look at the success of the Flash show and be like, maybe we should just make another Flash show, and that's our Flash. Like that's
no shot, DJ.
What?
No shot.
Really?
HBO.
You don't think they'd make a Flash like? No, I'm talking about like a new.
I thought you meant saying make Green Lantern the tone of the.
No. I'm taking instead of like we're already making an HBO Green Lantern show. Let's make an HBO Flash show. Because I think
I would love a Wally West show.
Because I think the reason and it won't be connected. The tricky thing is it wouldn't be connected to the other show at all. But I think the reason we're getting a Green Lantern show instead of a movie is because the Green Lantern movie bombed. Now we had the Flash movie bomb. I don't necessarily know that should be the takeaway. I think both those movies bombed because both those movies weren't particularly good. But if that is how we take away things, like we know Flash on TV's a relatively safer bet. So maybe we just do that again.
That's interesting. But would you really want to see Barry Allen?
No, I mean, if we do a movie, I'd like it to be Wally West. We're already doing legacy stuff with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart are in the Green Lantern show. So we could, if it's a show, maybe Barry's our Flash for the first episode and then dies, and then it's a Wally show moving forward.
Okay. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head is not to kill Jimmy Olsen within like 15 minutes of something.
Yeah.
What you could take from the CW shows.
Yes.
No, but I definitely, I have more thoughts, like just in general, not specific storylines, but I do think that there are some really fun things they did, like musical episodes. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's difficult when you go into movies because you don't have that much time. But like, would I be interested in seeing a Green Lantern musical episode in season 3 of the show? Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Hey, we're making a Booster Gold show. You know, here's the other thing that I think they should take away, and I think from the Arrowverse. Make them shows. Let's cut out this whole like event. Like, you know, are we getting a WandaVision season 2? Like looking at the Marvel side of things, are we getting a Moon Knight season 2? Are these standalones? What are the nature of these shows? No, make them shows. Treat Green Lantern season 1 like it's season 1 of a show with the anticipation that if it does well, there will be a season 2, there will be a season 3 at relatively regular intervals. And don't like don't just, you know what I mean? Am I making sense? Like, don't make a TV show. Just make a TV show.
Yeah, I think also don't ride things into the ground. Like, remember the last season of Flash, how much Grant Gustin did not want to be there?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Like, know when to get out. Know when your actors are done.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think that, and here's another thing. Turns out there's actually a lot of lessons you can learn from the CW stuff. You should treat each one existed enough in its own pocket that they could do their own thing, and then we build towards our crossovers. And so it's like you could have your Justice League big crossover stuff that only happens like maybe after season 2 of Green Lantern or in between seasons, but it exists enough in its own world that it doesn't matter if there's like 3 seasons of Lanterns between Superman movies. That doesn't matter because they're doing their own things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Did you watch Stargirl?
I watched the first season of Stargirl.
I didn't see a single episode of that show.
I think you might like it, or you might have. I do want. I liked, obviously we discussed this. I liked Superman Lois. I like this, but I did feel maybe some of my ancillary burnout on these CW shows. I'm like, was the acting always this kind of? Was the acting always like this? Was the lighting always like this? Is this because their budget's cut?
I love the acting. The performances are so great. Do you like Tyler Hoechlin's Superman?
I do. And again, it's a little hard because he's not in it as much this season.
I know.
But I remember from Supergirl and Superman Lois season 1, I do like it.
Okay.
Yeah. Jake Hefner asks, given the ups and downs that the ArrowVerse had during its time, do you think it was more of a success or a failure overall?
Definitely success.
I agree.
Definitely success.
Yeah.
I mean, it is how like so many people learned so many storylines and characters. And at times it was extremely entertaining. There was a lot of great performers.
Yeah.
And the crossover events tended to be really cool.
Yeah. And I think, especially in the height of when we were covering it, the bulk of it was good. And I think there's an argument to be made that what they accomplished is actually trickier than what the MCU did. Because instead of like 3 movies a year, it's like we're having 5 24-episode seasons running simultaneously without stepping on anybody's toes. I mean, the Crisis season, both Arrow and Flash were telling the same story. But, you know, for by and large, yeah, I think it was a success.
I think it brought comic books to so many people's screens, especially young people who didn't know. Like, think about like how many people prior to that knew, I don't know, Killer Frost, Black Canary. Like, there's certain people that like really they dove into, spent so much time with. And Black Canary is obviously a way more popular character in general, but we got to see so many different iterations of her. Like, there's just so many people I can think of that were like, or like Captain Cold and Heat Wave. Like, there's so many great villains that we really dove into. I think that like the majority of people who watch the CW shows probably were not avid comic book nerds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
anything, cool. Any apparatus endeavor that brings Gorilla Grodd to my screen, I say is a win.
And sometimes he looked very good.
Sometimes, listen, and I think that's where I think the spirit of where this question comes from is, I do think the CW Arrowverse did kind of end on a sour. Like by the time you and I stopped covering it, it was more miss than hit. But I don't think that undermines all the hits that it did have. Like to your point,
so much more miss than hit that you and I stopped watching a Superman show that was on.
Yes.
That was a good show.
Yes.
Because we were just like, no.
Mm-hmm. I need to get out of this relationship. All right. It's not you, it's me. I need to move on.
But also it was a little you.
The little you. And I think that goes to your point of like, don't stay too long at the party. You know what I mean? Like, you just let the stories.
Throw another party, a different party.
Throw a different party. You know, you can throw all the parties you want. So, real quick, if this is the end, and for this iteration, it is the end. What do you think is next for? Like, obviously, we're getting more DC shows that are connected to this new DCU. I mean, I say like it's a sure thing. Zaslav is still the president of WB, so who knows? But What do you think the future of superhero TV is? Do you think we'll ever have something like this again, or do you think it's going to take more the shape of what the MCU is doing right now with these little one-off shows? Like,
do you mean specifically for DC or just
in general, like something that, because I know there's the Chicago shows that all like cross over, or Chicago PD, Chicago whatever, but it does feel like what we had with the Arrowverse was something special that may never happen again.
Yeah, but they don't have to clear it with like DC, you know, they can do whatever they want on those shows.
You're talking about the Chicago shows? Yeah.
Yeah. Even like Grey's Anatomy does that too.
Yeah.
Man, I don't think we'll ever have anything else like this again. I do think we're going to see a lot more of what Marvel's doing right now because of what you just asked for, like make a show.
Yeah.
And if we want them to make a show, we can't really ask them to do what we had previously, which is like long seasons that run for series that run for 8 years.
Yeah.
With crossover events every year and 4 show. Well, at one point it was Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, Legends,
Black Lightning.
all running. Black Lightning.
Yeah.
With 5 shows running at one time simultaneously.
Yeah.
There's just no way. You know, it's not really how TV works anymore.
Yeah.
But I do think we'll have like a Green Lantern show will be on, and then the next show will be on, and then there will be crossovers between certain things.
Yeah.
But not running same season, same time, 5 shows, huge characters. Like, I think it's underrated because Arrow was a little bit different, but Flash is one of the biggest characters.
Yes.
Superman is obviously the biggest character.
Yeah.
And Supergirl is a massive character.
Yeah.
And they all were TV shows.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a Supergirl movie at the time.
No.
We didn't have a Flash. Well, we had a Flash movie.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a...
It took us a minute to get there, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just like, that's where the it stuff was.
Yeah.
So, you know, to the point where Flash had Flash on the show because it was so popular.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, I don't think we'll ever have that again, which is like it's a little time capsule moment. But TV is evolving, and I don't think it makes for the best television to make sure you have 5 shows running simultaneously for their crossover events.
And I will say, I know there's other issues, you know, the 24 episode seasons is good for job security. And I do think it works well for shows like Abbott Elementary. That new High Potential show looks like, you know, typical procedural could run 24 episodes a season, be fine. I do think as the Arrowverse wore on, it's like, I don't know that the 24 episode season's really doing you any favors at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like
especially
more
budget wise.
Yeah, it feels like more of a burden. And at the time, I think I suggested, and I think that might be true now. It's like, yeah, like have, for this example of the new DCU shows, have a Lantern show in the first half of the year, and then maybe your Flash show or your Booster Gold show or whatever in the back half of the year. You know what I mean? Like, there's still a DC show on however many weeks, like 12 weeks with Lantern and 12 weeks with Booster Gold, but they're not like running simultaneously, and we don't necessarily need them to intersect. As cool as that was, it's like, you know, help yourself out a little bit. Give yourself...
Totally.
All right, so those are our thoughts on Superman and Lois. Let us know what you think about the final season, whether you'll be keeping up, whether you kept up with the show, and whether you keep keeping up with the show moving forward in the comments. But before we go, we did want to touch back in. We talked a little bit about Agatha all along, and we want to touch back in with Penguin real quick. Roxy, we already kind of touched on it, but this episode of Agatha really dialed into Billy Maximoff, I think is what we're going with. And his journey to find out, he post bar mitzvah, he gets in a car accident right as, man, Wanda's whole Westview misadventure really screwed up a lot of lives. Anyway, he dies in a car accident and then takes on the spirit of her kid, Billy. So now he's Billy. Great that they have the same name. Convenient for him. And his journey to try and figure that out. And what we learn is that his goal on the Witch's Road is to
Wait,
find.
do they have the same name?
Yeah, it was William Kaplan, and then he was taken over by Billy.
Oh, yeah.
So that's nice and convenient. And his goal on the road is to find his brother Teddy, because again, even though they haven't announced it, we're building the Young Avengers. We are building the Young Avengers.
Tommy.
What did I say?
Teddy.
Sorry. Thank you for correction.
No worries. I just know because I remember how funny it was in the car. He yells out, Tommy. Yeah. And I was thinking his mom probably heard mommy.
I heard mom. Now that you're saying that, I'm like, I thought he said mommy. That's good to know. It's Tommy. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your question? Sorry, I was
no, there wasn't. Just I guess just thoughts on the episode. Although I will say, like with a newborn, the traffic accident where you lose your child was like, this is a nightmare. this is just a plot point in this character's journey. But as a parent, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, and imagine it not being your kid, but you think it's your kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved this episode. Loved learning more about him, and I think he's a cool character. Yeah, another tribe member who's a witch, and yeah, I just like this episode. I think that it's cool. I'm curious where we go from here now. Yeah. I liked us going back and seeing how the detective initial episodes kind of were playing out actually.
Yeah.
That was very funny.
Especially there's this one bit where Catherine Hahn leans in. He's like, you don't want to poke the bear. And he's like, no, I don't want to poke the bear. And it felt to me like he's about to break. It felt like that was like a one-off line that she really leaned into. And it feels like the actor, Joe Locke, is about to break. And they just kept it in there. It's like, because of course, Catherine Hahn's a great comedian. So, and she's been at it forever. Yeah. So of course you're going to have bits like that.
What was the joke you were referencing?
Oh, Dick Boner, Ralph Boner. That's his name. Oh. They bring back Evan Peters, who I love. I just remember hating the Ralph Boner reveal. Like, hey, we're bringing back a beloved actor in a beloved role from another universe. Oh, never mind. It's not that character. It's Ralph Boner. It's a dick joke. And it's like, get the fuck out of here. And it's like, we're bringing it back. And it's like, maybe don't. I mean, if you're going to bring
to see him though.
It works within the premise. It works. And it also helps fill in some of the gaps about what happened in WandaVision, like how did the dog die and stuff like that. But it's just one of those, like, I just want him to be Quicksilver, though. I don't want to do all this route. Maybe he can die and be possessed by the Quicksilver from the other universe. Like, I don't want him to be Ralph Boner. I want him to be Quicksilver from the X-Men movies.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
For sure. But overall, I thought this was a really good episode. Really good.
So let's also stop back in on the Penguin. This week's episode was Santani. Sorry, I'm not Italian. And this, I would say, this is a big Sophia Falcone episode. We're focused on Kristen Miliotti's character, filling in her backstory. And so my thoughts are, on some level, I think this might be the best episode of the season because it's a Sophia episode. And Sophia is, no offense to Colin Farrell and the Penguin, probably the most compelling part of the show. On the other hand, it is also, silly is too strong a word, but we really lean into the insane asylum tropes, like really lean into them, that it's like, I felt like this universe was a bit more grounded than that, but that's fine. It's Kristen Milioti, so it's fine because she's great.
I love this episode. It's actually similar to what they decided to do in Agatha this week, which is like, stop, rewind, and explain. And I think we really needed that with Sophia Falcone. And I found the way that they did Arkham to be so grounded.
Okay.
I thought that the way that they did it was so, like, we watched the descent into madness because we're watching a person who is not mad go into a mad scenario. We've all been in not that situation, obviously.
Yeah.
But in a situation where you feel sane and you go into a room and you feel like the crazy one.
Yeah.
And then it actually drives you crazy.
Yeah.
And like, watching that, I thought you can, because she was grounded, it happens where you put grounded people in crazy situations.
Yeah.
And so I just loved watching how we got here. And I think afterwards I was listening to the like behind the scenes thing, they do those 10 minutes or 5-minute things.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how she's the hero of the show, but that makes things so complicated for them. And I think that this episode really got a lot of people on board with the fact that she is this could happen to anybody, but like she got screwed.
Yeah.
And she's not always been this way. And it made us understand her more. And I just thought that she did such a brilliant job. They did such a great job. Yeah. And it's still, but we're still in Gotham.
Yeah.
So of course it's not our world.
I think I struggle with that line of, at what point are you kind of maybe illustrating the failures of our healthcare system as opposed to stigmatizing people with, like, everybody in this insane asylum is a raving lunatic and belongs here. It's like, I don't know that that's...
How long have they been there? They didn't come in that way, possibly, DJ.
Possibly. But I will say something I think as an operating procedure for the show, something that they seem dialed into that I think is makes this one of the better spin-offs, like movie, TV show spin-offs that like makes it valuable. Was it last week we saw Vic's family? We flashback with the flood. Was that last week's episode? So, or was it 2 weeks? Okay, I'm sorry. Again, time is weird for me.
Yeah, because he leaves at the end.
This way of like, okay, so in the Batman, the Riddler blows up the seawalls and the city floods. You're like, oh, supervillain shit. But then in the Penguin, we see it impact Vic's family. And you're like, oh, there's a real human toll. This was actually a lot worse than I thought of at the time. Similarly, major plot point in the Batman, Falcone, Carmine Falcone, we know he strangled in the past Selina's mom, and he strangles one of Selina's friends, which is how we connect the two dots. Which is bad. That's bad. He's a bad guy. He's a crime boss. That's bad. What we learn in the Penguin is that's just another Tuesday night for him. That's how he rolls. And you're like, oh, which based off two people that he both strangled, you're like, that's fucked up shit. But it's like, no, he's a serial killer. Falcone is a serial killer.
And a liar and a gaslight.
Yeah, and I was a little bummed. I had to look it up because it was like, Mark Strong's not that much younger than the actor in the Batman. I'm like, why did we recast? It's because the schedules didn't line up. I'm like, oh, I like Mark Strong a lot, but that is kind of a bummer.
I hear you.
It is a little bummer because John Turturro's so great in everything. And I would have liked to seen him interact with Kristen Milioti. That would have been cool.
Yeah, for sure. How much younger is he actually?
I don't know. Let me look it up. While I look it up, let me ask you this question. How much are you hoping Sophia shows up in the Batman Part 2?
That seems to be the questions everybody's asking. Like, how much do you hope that the Batman shows up at the end of the Penguin? How much do you hope that Christine Milioti, that Sophia is in the Batman? How much, like all of those things. Right now, I'm like nervous to rock the boat because I love her where she is.
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel. But her interacting with the Batman would be kind of wild. Because, like, what would he make of her?
I think for me, it comes down, I think you make a really good point. I think for me, similar to the Aubrey Plaza conversation, Kristen Milioti's such a great asset to have. I don't want them to burn it in one season of the Penguin. Like, keep that in your back pocket for whenever you need her because she's great. So I looked it up. There's like a 5-year difference between the two actors. And also, I think they said in the show, she's been in Arkham 10 years. So 10 years prior to the events of the Batman, John Turturro became Mark Strong. Who's great. I love Mark Strong.
They're both great actors. Yeah, I hear you, though.
Would have been cool.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
What did I see Mark Strong in this week? And I was like, oh my God, that is I got to think of this. It was like way younger. I almost didn't recognize him at first. I'm looking this up.
What was I was watching something that was like,
did you see him too?
No, it's just everybody was babies. It was just like, wow, this is not even that long ago, but everybody here is babies now.
It is so weird when you like to recognize somebody from so long ago and be like, wait a second, is that?
Yeah.
I'll try to find it right now.
Try to find it. See if you can. Oh, my wife and I watched Superbad. We had a little bit of downtime when baby was down. And we were watching Superbad, and it's like, yeah, Superbad's like 20 years old at this point. I think like next year or something, it's like 20 years old.
That's crazy.
And of course, everybody's in it. Like everybody from that circle's in it, and they're all children. They're all like, obviously, like Jonah Hill.
Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass. Oh, Mark Strong was the crime boss in Kick-Ass?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
In the first Kick-Ass?
Yeah. I remember liking the first Kick-Ass. I remember not liking the second Kick-Ass that much.
Interesting.
Anyway, those are our thoughts on Superman and Lois, Agatha all along, the Penguin, Roxy. Where can the kids find what you're working on?
Everywhere at Roxy Strayer.
Did you just get an award for something? Did I see a post where you just got an award?
Yeah, it was so cool. Oh. We were honored by the GIMAs. Still don't know exactly how to say it. Yeah. But it's a huge award show. It's like the biggest awards in marketing.
Yeah.
And we did a whole running bit. We did this whole sketch that we're going to put out where we pretend we don't know how to say the name of the show. Yeah. And now it's completely fucked me up because I had to mispronounce it 80 times. Yep. Gima, Gamma, Jam, Jamma. And I was like, you guys, now you're totally screwing me. Yeah. And it has, literally. Yes. But it was so cool. Ron Funches hosted the show. It was at the Peacock Theater, which is where they do the Emmys and the ESPYs, formerly the Microsoft. Cool. It's my first time in that theater. It felt like just the best. And I felt really proud of the group. And that award was so heavy. And I was like, this is legit. This is so heavy. I can't carry it.
So cool. If you want to see that, follow on the socials. You can find me at DJ Talks Trash. Go check out my personal channel, also DJ Talks Trash, where you can check out the first episode of Krypton Academy, the discussion I did with Michael Swaim on Trash Talk, more of that stuff. Got some stuff cooking. So go over, subscribe to that channel. And you can follow this show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, but on Twitter/X.
Yank out the vowels from stupid.
And we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.